This is episode 3 of I'm Just Older Darling. Hello, kia ora, my love. My name's Michelle. I'm the host of I'm Just Older Darling, a series of conversations with members of our communities who are sometimes referred to as elders. Their stories, their words. This was recorded during the lockdown of COVID-19. This conversation experienced some network issues, shall we say. I hope you enjoy it. I think it's still audible. Apologies for some of the quality. During this recording there's some Māori words, so here's some translations. Whānau, family, wahine, woman, takatapue, close friend of the same gender, intimate friend of the same gender. This conversation will start with Lavinia's Pepeha, which is a formal introduction of whakapapa. Again, a new word, her heritage, who she is.
Kia ora, ko Lavina Kingi Kaui tōku whenua. No kianga te awa, māmari te waka, pangaru te maunga, nā te manawa te marae, te hikatū te hapu, te raroa te iwi. Ko tēnei te taha i tōku māma. Te taha i tōku pāpā, o te kura te awa, ngā tuki mata whaurua waka, pukatawa te marae, whakabongorua te mana, te ngahe te hapu, ngā pui nui tonu o kui. Kia ora.
Hi Lavinia, tell us about you.
So kia ora, my name is Lavina Kingi Kaui. I live in Christchurch.
How do you feel about being an elder?
Oh God. How do I feel about being an elder? Well, sometimes I don't realise that I am the age that I am because I don't feel like I'm over 60, and I just feel like my experience of being an elder whakapapa was when I hear the experiences of other wahine Māori, I feel like I'm really different because I didn't come out until I was 30, and with that I was, I didn't have a lot of experience around being in the community of gay, lesbian, takatapui. My experience was mostly from wahine that had been in the scene since they were young women in their communities, and I came with a whole new set. I came with a set of values that of being in heterosexual relationships for the early part of my life, and as you know, that comes, there's certain privileges that you have when you're heterosexual, and those privileges are just small things. I realised that, walking down the road holding your girlfriend's hand, those sorts of things I wanted to do, and I felt that it was my right to do that. So I wanted to kiss my girlfriend in public, like you do when you are with a male. And in the earlier days, I felt uncomfortable with that, but I also was determined to do that for myself, to hold on to my heterosexual privileges.
What were your early experiences?
My earliest times of being within the movement was when I was involved with the Women's Refuge, which is a feminist movement around that's been in New Zealand since the early 70s, but it's actually been practiced a lot earlier by families or by takatapui, by certain people to keep women safe from domestic violence. So my education was mixing with people like some of the wahine tour that were involved with refuge at the time were people like Mediana Pittman, Wilma Bowser. She was the national coordinator for the women's refuge movement when I first became involved with refuge. And so a lot of those
Is there anything
issues
else you'd like to say?
assisted me in building up my own knowledge base around women's rights, feminist issues, and also during that time I was on my own journey of who I was. So it really established the person that I am today. Those early days, it really helped me to come out as a woman and build my confidence around who I am.
How does it feel to be an older Takatapui in the community?
Being an elder in the Takatapui community, well, it feels weird because, like I said earlier, I don't feel like I have had enough experience to be considered as an elder of the community. And in the early days, I struggled with that because there was a camaraderie around experience with other women that were around my own age and some older. There was a camaraderie and empathy around the women's rights issues that they had supported on their own journeys, and I haven't really experienced that. I was in the movement, and I was a part of the march in Auckland, where we marched, where our rights became a human rights issue, and so we won that. And so I was amongst all the other Takatapui whānau and people in Auckland celebrating that achievement for our community. And so marching to Waitangi was going on marches throughout around the motu who had been in the yeah. So one of the first feminist issues and that I was a part of was on the march for when we won the right to be the right of Takatapui is a human rights issue, and that was when I met a lot of Takatapui Māori.
What elders do you think impacted your life?
Well, that's a huge question because, first of all, it would have to be my parents. Because I feel like I have, the elders who have impacted my life would be my parents. And people like my nanny from Pangaru, Nanny Whenakupa. As a young girl, as a young mother living in Auckland, I researched, I listened to the news, I knew a lot of my whakapapa, or my family tree, from where I come through and where I come from. And where I come from is this little place from nowhere that has recently come into the news because we just unveiled a big statue in Pangaru in commemoration of Nana Whenakupa and her mokopuna. So Pangaru has been in the news over time, over the past 30 years, more so because the community has people from that community who are in television or in other areas of society that influence society as a whole. This little place has hosted a Takatapui gathering, which at the time, myself and my wife were living back in Okianga. and we were actually living in Hokianga, so we were part of that group that communicated with the Auckland Whakapapa actually a conference there, and it was pretty amazing to have all these gay people, colourful people come to this little homophobic little town in Northland. And the visibility of Takatapu in that community has only come about through the people that are Takatapu. And it's interesting. An interesting thing for me is that in that community, we all come from this one tupuna. And she got together with this American white man called Billy Ward. And our tupuna, there's all the families that live in, that come off this woman. Her name's Teoki. And off that tupuna, there are actually quite a lot of Takatapu living in that community. And when we held that conference, it brought out the people who came out of the community, the straight people, to me were surprising. A lot of my first cousins said, hey, that was fine. The people that were meant to be there were there. And we had an awesome time. I've got some nephews and nieces that are involved in television at the moment, and they are doing really well. And they have, I believe, helped to bring our small community of Pangari out of the closet.
In lockdown currently, do you think technology's had an impact on your feeling with community?
Oh, definitely. I think technology has a huge impact on the community. Down here in Christchurch, I'm part of a little group of Māori Takatapu, and we're still out there doing our bit with delivering food parcels and hygiene packs to people in the community, and the contact is really quick through social media, and I feel like we've been able to communicate more effectively and help each other to be entertained. There's been so much information and ways people have been dealing with lockdown. It's become overwhelming for me sometimes. Some days I can just hear my phone beep, beep, beeping, and I just don't answer. I just think, I've had enough. So, yes, I feel like technology's had a huge impact on our community and keeping us in touch with each other.
What would be the advice you would give to a younger person on a similar road as yours?
Be involved with a support group, young people that you feel that you get supported, because there might be times as a young Takatapu that you come across people who are not very nice. So always having that support group around you. Be involved with a group of other Takatapu that are looking at issues, feminist issues, political, what's happening in New Zealand or Aotearoa, looking at the communities that are around us. Get well informed about issues that are happening within your own age group, and get involved, because sometimes it can be quite lonely out there as a young person, and be involved with older people, older Takatapu that have life experience of and they're able to share some of the struggles that are able to share their story around the historical struggles of Takatapu, and remind the community of what political struggles that they've had to be a part of in order to get to where we are today. There's other takatapui have paved the way for young takatapui who some don't have to experience the horrible things that were done to takatapui in the past. Yeah, it's so for young people, even at school, there's been a lot of young people that have put themselves forward and that have been leaders of how to survive in schools as young takatapui, the community of LGBT.
How do you feel representation, and this is a massive question, that takatapui and women of colour within the rainbow community, do you think our voices are listened to?
To a certain extent, I think our voices are listened to. But, it's like, it's still, the journey is still slow. It's slower in terms of other issues within our society. It just seems like we've had a big fight because our community is seen as not being normal. So for me, it's I suppose my aim is that it is normalised. That our community is another part. It's just a bigger part of that bigger picture of identity within the society. That it's not seen as being different.
Thank you, Lavina, for the conversation. You're one of the most beautiful individuals I know. Thank you. I'm Michelle, your host. I'm Just Older, Darling. It's brought to you by Same But Black as a series of conversations with members of our community, sometimes referred to as elders, movers, shakers, doers, musicians, based in West Auckland and wider New Zealand. Each person has an interesting story and a perspective of their life and how. Thank you for taking the time, and I hope you enjoy the conversations with I'm Just Older, Darling contributors. Look forward to catching up with you on episode 4.